Grace and Marie feel like singing? Oh, that'd be wonderful. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Especially you though, Ganga. You got the lead. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare. Don't speed up. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You beautiful girls, sing what Gandhi sing. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Sing Yogi. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hey, beautifuls, come forward. Look at all these beautiful spaces for you. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. You can be brave. Nobody will hurt you. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Don't be shy. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. If you don't sing, they won't be brave enough. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama, Rama, Hare Rama. Sing with me, full hearts. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, all together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to our class today. How is everyone? Nobody likes the front rows? So it's scary. All right, in front of you, or close by you, you see these little bits of paper? This is a song which Rohan's going to sing with us. They have the words on them. If you feel brave enough, you can sing along.
Bravery has nothing to do with it. Just sing along.
Wake up, rise up, sweet family. It's a time for the Lord, and remember love is here. Love, love is all we see. Wake up and rise up right away. Wake up, rise up, sweet family. It's a time for the Lord, and remember love is here. Love, love is all we see. You wake up and rise up right away. Wake up, rise up, sweet family. It's a time for the Lord, and remember love is here. Love, love is all we see. Wake up and rise up right away. Welcome everybody. So, everybody's okay? For many of you, what is it, Tuesday? This is kind of like your first working day. Is it alright? Is Vijay a slave driver? Not really? Okay. So Gracie very kindly put a little class together today, sort of like half a class, entitled The Problem of Evil, which is a sort of perennial, in the Western world, it's been a perennial philosophical debate or discussion since about the 500s, the 6th century. Anyway, so we'll go through that today. Hope it's a little bit interesting for you. And then after that, that'll be maybe 20 minutes or so, something like that. It's not a long class, not a full class. And then we'll do a little questions and answers. And questions and answers is something that we do here from time to time. Sometimes once a week or sometimes every couple of weeks. And it's basically, if you have some question, it can be about the Hare Krishna movement, it can be about Hinduism in general, or South Asian spiritual traditions in general. Let's not have that door open because the slides will be too light for most of them. You want more air? I can put this fan up. See how that goes. That one that you have there, Gunga, is loud. You can try it. Is that a little better? Yeah. All the flowers are everywhere. Any questions basically about the last few thousand years in terms of the spiritual traditions of the East, which is really South Asia for the most part? Buddhism, Jainism, Hinduism, yoga, anything like that.
Can you take us on a brief tour
A brief tour of
the last 5,000 years?
South Asian philosophy. All right, we'll make that the first question. I'll do this. Gracie has very kindly put together a little bit of information for us on the problem of evil. So we'll go through that, and then I'll give you a quick tour. Is that what you want? A summary tour of the last 5,000 years of South Asian spirituality. All right. See how we go. Thank you, Gracie. When I get Greg here, next I'm going to get him to move that fan thing. What's our next slide? Now, when Gracie and I did this a couple months ago, we basically wrote down a few things with the agreement that she and I would get together later and turn all of this into a very small amount, like 1 or 2 sentences. But I only remembered that about half an hour ago. So anyway, there's a lot of writing there. So the problem of evil has been perhaps the single most important argument against the existence of a loving God, predominantly within the traditional Orthodox Christian, Islamic, and Judaic conception in the history of the Western world. Fundamentally, it is the idea that bad things can happen to good people, or vice versa. If we have an all-loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful conception of God, how is it that innocent children can be seen to undergo suffering, for example? Or said another way, if a mother or father has the power, is there definitely no slide between the first one and this one? Yeah. Okay. If a mother or father has the power to protect their children from all harm, has the knowledge of how to protect their children from all harm, and has the desire to protect their children, how is it possible that those children could indeed come to any harm? So, is it Nemo? No, that's wrong. What's your name? What is your name?
Mine?
Yeah.
Timo.
Timo.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, if I really love Timo,
I love you back.
thanks, man. And I have so much knowledge about how to care for him or take care of him. I've got all the resources. I've got all the money, I've got all the power, I've got all the intelligence, I've got the knowledge. I've got everything I need to love him. Sometimes we may love somebody but not be able to save them. Maybe they have, maybe they're dying. Maybe they have some kind of disease. but we don't have the power. We love them, we want to help them, but we don't have the power to help them. So let us say that I do love Timo. I have the knowledge, the power, whatever I need to take care of him and love him. And I have the, basically the knowledge, the power, and the desire. So especially in Christian history, they call this a triple O God. Omnipresent, omnipotent, omnipowerful, and omniscient, knowing everything. So in Christendom, which is basically Europe for the last, depending on where you are in Europe, the last perhaps 600 or 700 years, or perhaps almost 2,000 years, they have presented a concept that God loves you. God is like a loving father. He cares about you. He loves you. He wants what's best for you. So if we accept that, but then we also see that innocent people are being hurt or killed or some issue is there, then from the beginning, intelligent people have had some, what they call cognitive dissonance about this. You know, something's not right. Let me try to figure this out. So they've come with different ways of trying to deal with that. Now, this did not arise right in the beginning of Christianity, or as the Middle Eastern religious traditions started to spread outside of the Middle East. Because early on in Christianity, you have church leaders like, for example, Origen, who was perhaps the most powerful Christian leader of his time in 3rd century. You okay there, Stephen?
Yeah.
Teaching reincarnation. So later on in Christianity, basically you had some people teaching reincarnation and something like karma, and you had some people not. And that was going on contemporaneously, you know, in different places, at the same time, in different places. But then by about, say, the 6th century AD, basically, for the most part, not in all cases, but in most cases, reincarnation and the other relevant wisdom which comes with that sort of disappeared from Orthodox Christianity. So at that time, as soon as reincarnation disappears, an issue arises. And basically this has been a very powerful issue in the Western world. And although it may not be any kind of philosophy, may not be the prime topics that, you know, if I go on YouTube right now, like I saw a couple of weeks ago, Justin Bieber, he just put out some song, had 500 million hits in like a few days. So that's popular. Philosophy is not so popular. I love Justin Bieber, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, these are not the things which most people are thinking about most of the time. Nonetheless, it does affect us. These things, there's an undertow of philosophy running through all our lives. We all have a philosophy. We may not clarify it, or we may. We may not write about it or study it at university, but we have a philosophy, everyone, just like we have a psychology. You don't have to study psychology to have a psychology. You do have a psychology. Similarly, we do have a philosophy. We do trust in certain things. We do intuitively understand certain things, like ethics or so on. In fact, if you really analyze a human being, certainly any of the people in this room, you will find that philosophy, like ethics, justice, right and wrong, good and bad, fair and unfair, these things matter to us almost more than anything else, because our relationships matter to us almost more than anything else. Isn't it if you... So, give me 1 second. If you... What's that? Okay. If you... let's say we lose some money or something like that. In Sanskrit you call it dravya, like a physical object. Like your car breaks down and you know, oh, I'm going to have to pay a few $100s or something to get that fixed. Something like that. when those things happen to us, it may hit us. Or let's say we're walking down the road and we find a $100 bill. Woo. These things are important to us to some degree, but really if you analyze it, they're important to us because of our relationships. And our relationships are key in our lives. I think everybody with a modicum of sort of common wisdom understands that if all your relationships are good, healthy, loving, beautiful relationships, whether you have more or less material wealth is secondary. And if you think further on it, material wealth or fame or prestige or different powers that we might, social powers and things which we might achieve in this world, really only become valuable in the context of relationships. So because philosophy is intrinsically connected to our relationships, and really relationships and loving relationships are the most important thing for us, therefore philosophy may be worth, even though it's not so popular on YouTube, may be worth considering or thinking about or musing upon or reading great philosophers throughout history and getting ideas and things like that. Anyway, so in the last 1,500 years, 1,400 years, this has been a problem, especially in the Western world. Hit that slide there, Gracie. Oh, more writing. So, we'll look at a couple of other takes on this from different people, different times. So Socrates is pre-Christianity. He's about 300 BC, more or less. Socrates approached this problem in a different way. Socrates said, in a civilized community, punishment must always and only be for the correction and improvement of the criminal. So, let's say we have children one day. Who here has children? I do not have children. Cool, Rohan. I was just waiting for you. Okay. So, sometimes, for the higher good of that child, some discipline may be required. But if the discipline or any kind of punishment is given to a child not for a higher good, it's not that I'm going to stop you running in the road for the higher good so that you don't get run over. I'm just going to stop you doing something you like out of spite or out of some other reason which is not a higher value. This is considered, in Socrates' language, as uncivilized. And so if we present a loving god or goddess or some divine personage, that person, as Plato said, should at least have the virtue of a good human being. Do you follow this? And the relevance? Okay. I cannot believe in a God, for example. I know who said this, we just couldn't remember, so we wrote anonymous, but if anybody knows, you can tell us and we'll put it up there. I cannot believe in a God who is morally inferior to a good human being. Plato also had something to say on this subject. He argued against the conception of the gods given by Homer. Who has ever read Homer? Most famous works being the Iliad and the Odyssey. Who here has seen the movie Troy with Brad Pitt? So that was taken from that literature. His argument was that the gods, being divine, must display all virtues. According to the portrayal of the gods in Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, the gods and goddesses display all sorts of greedy, lusty, whimsical, jealous, prideful, etc. behavior. So, basically what you have in history is you have people who, by their testimony, by what they say, are having some connection, some yoga, with some divine person. Now, in Homer's day, that may be Apollo, the sun god, or might be, a little later on, might be Jupiter, or might be Saturn, or might be the earth goddess, or sort of in Christianity, or for example, in Christianity, might be God, or Jesus, or Mother Mary, something like that. So people are, throughout history, in practically every culture on the earth, for as long as we have recorded history, we have people telling us that they are having some connection, some relationship with some kind of divine person. If that is a positive value, if it is, as so many spiritual leaders have told us, a very wonderful thing, a very interesting thing, a very appropriate thing. Let's say, for example, that Mother Earth is an actual person, a goddess, and that she cares for us. Let's say, historically this is being put forward. If someone comes forward to us and says or teaches that actually this loving, feminine goddess figure is evil or hates us or wants to kill us or wants to torture us or something like that, it starts to create very strange ideas in culture, and it starts to get weird. For example, if I believe in a God, now let's not talk about whether there is a God or there isn't a God for now. Let's just say, if there's a God, that God is a serial torturer of his own children. That if you do the wrong thing or join the wrong church or don't join church at all or something like that, or make some mistake, some easy to make mistake, that person, your loving Father, may burn you in hell forever, or something wonderful like that. If someone presents a concept of God like that, and that's just so we can get past all the conditioning that we've all had in our different upbringings, let's say someone gives that conception of Mother Earth, that she needs things to be just like this or just like that, and you've got to do just this and just that, or she's going to do something horrible to you for a very long period of time. If you present on behalf of that person, this goddess who may or may not exist, some people call her Gaia or Bhumi or Mother Nature or like this. If you distort the conception of that person, things get very strange. For example, if I believe that someone who doesn't go to my church will burn in hell forever, and then someone leaves my church and starts to take people with them, what would be the logical thing to do? I'll say that one more time. If I have a church, let's say, and I believe, however ignorant and strange the idea might be, but I believe the people in my church are going to go to heaven, and everybody outside my church is something very, 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 very bad is going to happen to them. They're going to go to hell for millions or billions or trillions of years, and maybe even after trillions of years, they'll still be there. It's a long time, right? Working in the sun for 3 hours is a long time. Standing in a fire for 1 trillion years is a long time. So, what would be the logical thing to do if somebody starts to pull people out of the church? Exactly. So, for example, right now, a census was taken in Saudi Arabia that what should be done if a person gives up the Islamic faith and becomes something else. What should be done? 95% of the population said that person should be killed. So, as long as you accept a distorted view of some divine person, if you get that far, you've accepted some very strange idea about a god or a goddess. From that point forward, it becomes logical to do very, very weird things, like kill people who leave your church, or conquer countries in order to bring them the one true religion and kill anybody who disagrees with you. becomes logical. And actually, it has been done on the platform of centuries and centuries and millions of lives. You follow this?
But isn't it stupid?
It is.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Sophie.
Yeah, but why?
Why do I agree?
No, why do people do this?
Somehow or other,
It must be all stupid.
that's another class, really. Whoa. I don't know if we should go there.
Okay.
I'll give you the 2-minute version. There is a type of sociology called tribalism. I don't mean that you live in a tribe in Papua New Guinea or somewhere, necessarily, but you have a consciousness of what is called in sociology a tribal consciousness, where you feel that my tribe or my gang or my family or my race or my country or my group, whatever that is, my group is valuable. And everybody outside of that group is not valuable. So you see this, for example, let's take inner city gang culture. I'm sure, I'm just going to give you the stereotyped version. I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions. Someone belongs to my gang. They might be a criminal, they might be a this or that, might be a nice guy or a bad guy or whatever. It doesn't matter. They're in my gang, so I love them. I think they're great. I'm with them. I'm going to protect them, take care of them. They're in my gang. I do not assess their character. I simply assess that, are they with me or not? Okay, they wear the same colors as me. They live on the same street as I live. They're in my gang. Okay, I don't care if they're a murderer or a rapist or whatever. I'm going to take care of them. They're my brother or my sister. Somebody from another gang, a rival gang, again, we don't assess the character. We don't look, is it a good person, a bad person? We don't look at anything like that. All we see is they're in the other gang. Therefore, we can kill them. We can do anything to them. You follow this? This is called tribalism. If you're in my tribe, cool. If you're in another tribe, I can do anything to you. For example, sometimes we've seen that in race. You belong to my race, you have a certain skin color or whatever it is. Okay, doesn't matter what you are or what you do, you're good. You're my brother or my sister. You belong to this other race, I can do anything to you. You can be my slave, I can kill you, do anything. We were talking about Christianity. Take the early Christian church in Rome. Basically, if a Christian was caught for maybe 300 years this went on, if a Christian was caught, you could put them into the Colosseum or feed them to the lions, torture them, crucify them, do anything to them, because they're that other group. They're not a Roman citizen. They're following this subversive new religion. You follow this? There's been times in history, I'm sure there's times on places on this earth right now, where if you're a man, it's all good. If you're a woman, then we can do this to you. We can do that to you. You're second class or no class or have little value or no value. You follow this? So whether we apply it to a tribe or a gang or a country or a religion or, in extreme cases, a soccer team, something like that, my group is good. I don't care who they are, what their character is, if they're virtuous or a criminal or good or bad or this or that. I don't care. They're with me. I'm going to take care of them. Mafia culture, same deal, right? You're in the family. I don't care if you kill people for a living or do whatever you do. You're in the family. You're good. And somebody in a rival family, they're automatically bad and you can kill them. For example, we have that right now in Australia for people who are in non-human bodies. Just like a few centuries ago, if you were in another skin body, like a black body or something like that, you could do anything to those people. You could make them your slaves or whatever. They could not be free citizens. similarly, today, if you happen to be a horse or a cow or whatever, something like that, you can do anything. You can kill them by the millions. And maybe some vegans will care, or the World Wildlife Foundation will hand you a little booklet on the street. But basically, for most of society, you can do anything to them. If you want to hurt or torture or kill animals or birds today, we also have that tribal consciousness. Not necessarily the people in this room, but as a country. You follow that? Basically, the idea is, if your body is different from mine, we can do anything to you. Follow? This is tribalism. So when someone with tribal consciousness joins a religion, they start to think in that way. And therefore, you get this, my religion is good, and everybody else's, you're all going to hell, I can kill you, I can conquer you, I can do anything to you. If religion itself was the cause of the war, or of that kind of consciousness, then when religion came out of European culture in the beginning of the 20th century, in previous ages, say in the Middle Ages or in the Renaissance, if a king or a country went to war, you had to justify that based on the Bible in the West. You couldn't, like if I'm 500 years ago and I'm the king of France or something, I can't say, oh, I'm going to attack that country. Can't do that. You have to somehow justify because of this or because of that. You had to put it in the context of religion. That was the culture. Now, at a certain point, we got rid of that. At the end of the 19th century, it was completely gone. So if then we made the conclusion that, okay, religion is the cause of war, now let's get rid of religion, then what happened? Then we really went to town. Then we had Stalin, we had Hitler, we had Mao Zedong. Now you're talking about deaths in the tens of millions. It's a lot of people. There's only 25 million people in Australia. So Stalin killed double that of his own people. Anyway, large numbers of human beings. So it's not being white, or being Christian, or being Buddhist, or being a man, or being a woman, or being from this country or that country. It's the consciousness. For example, when the white people moved out of Liberia, Liberia was just not good, hellhole, and slavery was very prominent there. When the white people left and tried to make some attempt to give Liberia its freedom, things got way worse to this day. Even though there was no white people left, it was all black people, black-skinned people. So it wasn't that it was the fault of a certain race or a certain religion or a certain country, it was the fault of the consciousness. Is that all right?
Why is it worse now?
That would be an interesting question. I don't know, but we did see that it got worse. It may be that even though that religion, as a structure was pretty corrupt, pretty amazingly corrupt, perhaps still it had some sort of pacifying influence. And then when you completely got rid of that, create a little more freedom, for good or for bad. It's a little bit of a dark class. I didn't mean it to be. Gracie, give us the next slide. So, historically, the problem of evil has not been a problem in the East. This leads us to the fork in the road. Thank you for all these slides, Gracie. What's the next slide? Now, we'll just scoot back a little bit. If you have, hit the next slide.
The next one?
Yep. If you have a situation where when a baby comes, they have been created at that point. If your philosophy is that baby is born, they are completely fresh. That living entity has never existed before. They've just arrived on the scene, completely with no prior existence. then they're going to go through a life and then go somewhere. This is called a linear conception. You start, you go through a life, and then you end. Now, if you see, say a couple of sisters are born in the same family, and one sister is born with cancer and has so many troubles and difficulties and for some reason ends up dying early in life, and the other sister is super healthy and beautiful and wins the lotto when she's 18 and everybody loves her and she gets all, good fortune. If you have a linear philosophy and a loving father figure or mother figure, you get into, it creates a philosophical dilemma. Why is one child all this bad stuff is happening and this other child good stuff? For example, if I ever get married and have children, if I treat one child like really good, just pour all my love onto that child, and I completely neglect or abuse the other child, that would be considered pretty heinous, pretty horrible. If I get caught, maybe I go to jail or something. So from the point of view of religious systems or religious traditions that do not have reincarnation, that have a linear system of philosophy, you get stuck in this. Why is this one more beautiful and that one not as beautiful? This one richer, not as rich. This one happier, not as happy. Why is bad things happening to good people and good things happening to bad people? Although this argument would not prove the existence of reincarnation or not, at least when reincarnation and karma are part of a person's philosophy, at least that does not create any philosophical dilemma. If we understand, what does this one say? Go to the next slide. And the next? So, just on the second paragraph here. Therefore, at least in the philosophical sense, when one assumes the perspective inherent in reincarnation and karma, children born with different levels of strength, beauty, fame, intelligence, resources, etc., are not only expected, but are logically required, because those children are not new from the perspective of the East. They have had many lives, and because they have developed karma along all those lives and have had desires and have wanted this and wanted that, therefore, it would be logically required that children will be born at all sorts of different levels of intelligence and strength and beauty and fame and happiness and so on. For example, if Hitler took his next birth as a human baby, we might expect, if we accept reincarnation and karma, that a loving, divine parental figure may place him in circumstances painful enough that he may begin to rectify his psychology and bring him back to a happy, healthy, loving soul. In the Orthodox Western paradigm, seeing a child suffering and not knowing his previous life as a Führer, one sees injustice in the universe and surmises that there cannot be an all-loving divine God. This question, or this predicament or dilemma, perhaps more than any other, pulled apart the intellectual culture of the Western world from the religious culture or the spiritual culture. Do you see why? Because if you are born in a village or a town or a city, and everybody in that town is from a particular spiritual tradition, but you happen to be quite thoughtful and intelligent, perhaps you're a scientist or an intellectual or a scholar, or you're just considered. If when you approach that spiritual tradition, it is not logical or reasonable or rational, then it starts to pull apart the intellectuals and the scientists and the scholars from that spiritual tradition. And basically that's what happened in the Western world. Hello. And you see now, even I was just reading or just listening to a lecture from Harvard University, even now at the university level, especially in the well, actually, I don't know that. Certainly in some universities, there's an attempt to bring these two back together, to bring spirituality and science, philosophy, and like you see in quantum physics now, they test specifically, they're looking for people who are very good at meditation to test them whether their intention can affect matter. There's thousands and thousands of experiments like that going on. And in fact, they do. Who here has seen some popular physics movies like Down the Rabbit Hole, What Believe Do We Know, or something like that? Nobody? Tracy and Rohan? Oh, hello. So they present those kind of ideas there. They'll do like random number generators, so a computer is just spitting out zeros and ones. Then they'll put down a person in front of that computer and get the person to have the intention of having more ones. And they see, again and again and again, it creates a shift. And for a person who is, as they said in that Down the Rabbit Hole movie, highly self-managed individuals, I think that's what the physicists called it. People who are very capable of meditation, people who can focus their mind, then they are seen to be able to shift reality in a stronger way. Or if like we watched a week or two ago, some clips about Emoto, who is this Japanese gentleman who puts intention onto water, and then he takes photos of the water, and the water actually changes based upon the intention that you have. Changes in a very powerful, quite amazing way. There, so much. All right, my friends, that was just a little introduction into the problem of evil in the Western world. I think that's the last slide, right? Is that the last one?
Yes.
Okay. If you like, is there any questions specifically about that? You can take that question now if you like, Sophie. Or should we jump to Luther's question? What is the summary of the last 5,000 years of Eastern spirituality? Seems like an easy question. That was a joke. Hi.
Hi. My question is, if someone, say the example, say when he comes back, and he's in a situation where, he's not in a hard situation, maybe he's disabled or something like that. Does it mean that people who believe in reincarnation are less kind to people with
No. I think we see in this world that there's always a few judgmental people around, but I think everybody is a little bit conscious. We all know that we make mistakes, we all know that we have flaws, and therefore, as you get a little bit mature, when we see some flaw or mistake in someone else, we hopefully don't judge them and just act in a loving way towards them. Is that okay? But I'm sure some people do. Some people judge no matter where you go. They have riots if you don't perform well in cricket in India sometimes. If you're like a famous batsman or bowler and you have a bad game, people judge you. It's pretty serious over there. Okay.
Considering karma for the Eastern spiritualists, how much power does it think people have over the life?
Complete. It's complete. Emma is asking, is karma a sort of absolute determinism? Is our life just fixed now? We can't, no matter what we do, we're just kind of stuck on a path. No. In fact, Buddha specifically made this a point of his teaching to make sure people don't start to think like that. However, there are some things determined because of our past choices. So the example I heard one teacher give once is if you get on a plane to Italy, at that point, you're kind of on the plane. If you got really radical or creative, you could probably figure a way to get off the plane while you're up in the air. But in general, you kind of made a choice, and now you got a 20-hour trip that you're kind of stuck on. And you've got choices while you're on the plane. You know, you could have this to eat or that to drink, or talk to this person or not, or read a book or watch a movie or whatever it is you want to do. But we do make choices which do affect us over time. So we have made choices in our past life which has created this body. For example, if I wanted to now live as a horse, I couldn't immediately affect that change. Or some people change sex, isn't it? But it takes like a couple of years to transition and lots of money and surgeries, and even then it might not be perfect. Or I'm 6'2". It would be hard. I don't know how I would become 5'8". I don't know how I'd become Asian in this life. So we're kind of, to some degree, we've made some choices in the past, we're here, but now that we're here, there's so many choices to make now for the future. So it's like a co-creative experience. Is that okay?
And but if like bad things happen, this is not from choice.
Ah, I see. So there are some choices that we have made in previous times. For example, nobody is going to choose to get hurt unless you are a masochist. Is that what the word is? So, and even then, it's just like a strange idea of how to get pleasure. If, so it's not that you're necessarily choosing to suffer, but if you choose to hurt somebody else, there's a string attached to that karmic string, which you will then, at a certain point, receive the same suffering that you gave to somebody else. It's like a mirror. It's reflecting to you what you're doing. So if you're, let's say, you know, keep it super simple, if you are in general loving, kind, patient, forgiving, you're acting that way to others, then you will see over time that the universe is reciprocating with you, encouraging you. Yes, now see how other people are forgiving you and kind to you and loving to you. It's a simplified version, but it's like that. So it's not that they chose necessarily to suffer, but we chose. But there may be some things in this life which are good for us, which are not entirely pleasant. There are some examples in Eastern spirituality where they feel that there is no loving person behind karma. It's just like a machine. Like it's just like you put in this and you get that exactly back. So you hurt someone, you get it back. You hurt someone accidentally, okay, you get a little bit back. You hurt somebody, you know, like first degree, you know, thoughtful, planned out, I'm going to hurt you, and somebody does that to you. You know, you get this reciprocity. Then the bulk of the tradition, the bulk of the Hindu tradition, is yes, there's karma, there's this mechanism, but there's also a loving person behind it. So it's like justice and mercy. Like the way a good parent would be. You know, you set rules or whatever, but sometimes, you know, you don't always stick, you know, exactly to the rule. That gets a bit rigid. Sometimes there's a time and place for just, you know, okay, whatever you've done, just loving, kindness. Is that okay? So this young lady had her hand up, and then I'll come over here.
I'm just wondering, what is the reason for the soul to pick particularly that body, if you know what I mean?
Different bodies provide different experiences. So in general, the human body, for example, gives the opportunity for higher spiritual practice. An animal, for example, may be able to eat, like for a cow, I sometimes watch them. Basically, the earth is like a dinner plate for them. We had a rabbit once, and I would watch the rabbit and see him looking at it. I'm not sure if it was a him or her actually, but I would just watch him sometimes when I was chanting in the morning, and I could see for that rabbit, the entire earth was just edible. You know, it's like edible. It's like everywhere you go, like for us, it's just a massive feast everywhere. And the rabbit would go around and try this food and try that food. So there are bodies where you can get much different experiences, even better experiences. I heard one class at the temple one day, and a gentleman said, If you want sex, have a pigeon body, because pigeons have sex 30, 40 times a day. That's what he said. I saw a nature documentary once on African lions. They are celibate significant periods. For months at a time, lions will be celibate. Then on one weekend, they'll have sex 200 to 300 times. It's like a romantic getaway. And so, there's different experiences in different bodies. The human body is specifically meant if you have somehow desired in the past to explore higher things. Higher intelligence, higher thought, spirituality. Should I answer that one, or should I go to this and then come back? So I should go here? Or no? Let me ask you this way. Is this one connected to the first question?
Kind of, because I read somewhere that some souls don't come back because as I understand it, it said that some souls don't come back because they're like, because you
They
know,
get enlightened, or they go home,
yeah,
or they go to
because some
Nirvana.
people are not like us, like seeking a higher consciousness. You know what I mean?
From the Eastern perspective, just presenting not necessarily what I think, but just how they have dealt with that question. Basically, in Hinduism, you have the concept of there's a spiritual home, and it's personal. In other words, there's lakes and people and music and dance and rivers and swimming and trees and everything. Everything that is there is reflected here. So in Hinduism, you have this idea, we are from a spiritual home, we are spiritual beings, divine beings, but in that spiritual world, you cannot experience some lower tastes. They say lower, but whatever. There's some things that you cannot experience there. And if you want them, then you may come to this universe to taste that. But the idea is that after experiencing some of these things for some time, this is the reason why they call it lower, you eventually get tired and bored. This my home was better. So that's the idea, and then they go home. The Buddhists have very different ideas depending on what Buddhist school. Some of them think just like that. Some of them have like pure heavens. That something like that's a similar Hindu idea, that you become, as you develop virtue, become more loving, more forgiving, more pure, more whatever, these things, and you leave behind greed and lust and anger and hate, and you leave that behind and you sort of go higher, then you eventually reach nirvana. The trouble with nirvana, not the trouble, but depending on what Buddhist school you are, you may have a very different concept of what nirvana is. But at least that idea is there, that there's some state of existence where you no longer come back into the wheel of samsara. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks.
What is your question?
I was wondering what decides what you will become in the other life, the next life. So if you have a strong desire to get to be a horse, for example. Yeah, I mean, if you care for horses, is that how it works? Or how?
Half desire, half deserve. It's basically the idea. Actually, that's more or less, I was thinking in my mind, is that the same in Buddhism and Hinduism? Buddhism and Hinduism are the two main spiritual traditions of the East, so I'm considering them. But basically, yeah, from both perspectives, you can't want to be, let's say I want to be an angel in my next life and experience some heavenly, wonderful life, but I act not like an angel.
Yeah.
Then it's not going to work. But when your desire and your actual attempt, you actually kind of deserve it to some degree. You're trying for that. So I don't know how you would deserve to be a horse, but I'm sure there's a...
No, not that
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. But we could imagine that, so your actions, your thoughts, your consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is the prime, in some ways the prime Hindu literature, Vedic literature, yogic literature. 8.4 and 8.5, chapter 8, text 4 and 5, Krishna basically says, first he says, Arjuna and Krishna are very loving friends, and they're talking to each other. And Krishna says, if you think of me alone in love at the time of death, you will come to me. He's speaking as God from their perspective, from the Hindu's perspective. If you love me and you're thinking of me at the time of death, you will come to me. Then he says, if you are, whatever you are focused on at the time of death. So the word I think is bhava, which is not exactly, it's not like you do whatever you want in life and at the moment of death you think of I don't know what and automatically go there. It's more state of mind, your state of consciousness at the time. So over your whole life, you're developing a certain consciousness. Like let's say I watch one horror movie a day for my whole life. Don't do that. But if you did, that has an effect. 2 hours a day, I gave my consciousness to sort of horror, fear, and torture, and all these things. So I'm getting pulled gradually over my life in a certain direction. If I choose to, get some beads and meditate like a Tibetan Buddhist on Om Mani Padme Hum or something, the mantra of compassion, and I spend that 2 hours every day meditating on compassion, that will pull me in my life into a different state of consciousness. So basically, yoga, basically what you see, or what you understand if you sort of look over the yoga literature, is if you eat like this, if you live like this, if you develop virtue, if you all these different activities are going to pull you. Where do you want to go, basically? Do you want to go here? Okay, then here's the kind of activities, thoughts, consciousness, actions that will take you there. Krishna says, if you want to go to the planets of the demigods, so again, this is like Mother Earth or the Sun God or the Moon God or whatever. If you want to go there and live with them, this is the ancient world. They have this idea, that just like there are billions and trillions of living entities on us and all around us right now, and for them, we're something like a planet, even. Similarly, these huge bodies, like the sun or the moon or the earth, are actually living bodies. There's a soul in there, just like there's a soul in each of the human beings here. There's a soul in these planets. There's a living entity there. Our lifetime may be 100 years, and we have certain powers and intelligence and so on. Look at it like this. This will help you enter into their consciousness. If you look at this cement, we, at least in the conventional, normal sense, don't think of this cement as a living body. It's kind of like dead matter, or this rubber yoga mat, or whatever it's made of, or this wooden table. It's dead matter. There's no soul active in that physical object. So you basically have one category of everything that we see, sort of inanimate objects, like cement or glass or steel or rubber. And then you have a completely separate category of living bodies. Grass, horses, cows, crazy cat, Emma. So from the ancient world perspective, that's all there is, in a sense. At least in terms of what we visually perceive around us, there's only two types of things: living bodies and dead matter, quote-unquote dead matter. So then when they look at, say, the earth, do they think, oh, is that a dead thing, like a piece of cement or a piece of rubber? Or is the earth a living body? Just by looking at her. Like say you go to the moon and take a photo and look at the earth. What does she look like more? A piece of plastic? Or does she look like a living thing? With the volcanoes and the tides and the river systems and the rain and all, the different rhythms and flows that she has. Does she look like a living thing or a dead thing? So, from their perspective, it was very reasonable. In fact, it was just like, from their perspective, obvious. That's a living person. So then they would try to create some yoga. They would try to have a relationship with her. They would express gratitude to her. You follow this? It's very natural, actually. And then when they look at the whole universe, they also see a living thing. So then they have a Jagatpati. Be careful, don't drag their attention away. Stephen, don't drag everyone's attention. I know, you're the innocent recipient. The best one is when a really cute baby runs in front, you've lost your audience. It's over. Finished. So just like if we look at a body that looks like Emma or Stephen or a crazy cat, we understand that as a living being. So when they see the earth, they see that as a living being, just logically. And they may, just like we may go pick up crazy cat and create some relationship, they also may create or try to create a relationship with the earth. When they look at the whole universe, they also see a living thing. So they call that Jagatpati. Jagat means the universe, and Pati means father, the universal father, like Odin or God or something, or the goddess. This is how they arrive at those conclusions. I wandered too far down the garden path. Where's that young lady here? I forgot the question. What was that? All right. What is that time? All right, my friends. So I can see there's many thoughtful, considered people here. Maybe we'll do another one of these next week. But I think for now, it's probably lunchtime, if you like. Lunch today will be served up at the temple, and as far as I understand it, it's a little bit special today. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm Ranjan Maharaj. So I will leave you here now. If you like, only if you like, if you feel inclined, you could put one of the yoga mats back or do whatever that you'd like to do. And lunch will be in about 15 minutes at the top. There's yoga here today at 5 p.m. if you like. And I'll see most of you tomorrow morning at 6:15 if you'd like to. You're most welcome. Most welcome.